262 players were drafted to the NFL this year, just like this guy, Brock Purdy. He was the final overall pick, number 262, otherwise known as Mystery Relevant. Today, we're going to talk about 10 rookies to keep your eye on in fantasy football. They might just help you win your league. We're going to start with a couple wide receivers. Number 1, Mr. Drake London. He's currently going as wide receiver 36 in fantasy football in round 10. Now, he was the 8th overall pick by the Atlanta Falcons, and he did suffer a knee injury in week 1 of the preseason, so he's going to miss a little bit of time, but it's appeared to be non-serious, so he should be good to go. The problem is he does have an injury history to his name. He did suffer a broken ankle back in October of 2021 while he was at USC. That did force him to miss his combine and his pro day. Now, if he can stay on the field, just a big if, should be the Falcons wide receiver 1 with not a lot of competition out there. Russell Gage, who they had last year, he's in Tampa Bay. Calvin Ridley, suspended for the season. So it's London pretty much as the clear wide receiver 1 on this depth chart. Zacchaeus, Damiere Byrd, Kadero Hodge don't really pose a big threat to him. It's really going to be London and Kyle Pitts. London has the frame to be a fantasy beast. 6'4", 215 pounds. There's a lot to love about what he's got to offer, but there's a couple things that concern me about London. Number 1, quarterback play. Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ridder. Those are who he's going to have at the helm. I don't know if I love to hear that. Number 2, London's going to probably have a lot of growing pains. He's going to probably face the number 1 corner from every single opposing defense, unless they put them on Kyle Pitts, which I don't see all too often. So look at how he's going to start off. He's going to get the Saints week 1 with Marshawn Lattimore, and then the Rams in week 2 with Jalen Ramsey. That's a little bit of a tough stretch. The times will get better. Better days are ahead for Mr. London, but he might struggle out the gate. But he's a 10th round pick. He should be able to return a good amount of value back on there if he can stay on the field. Speaking of the Saints, let's talk about their 11th overall pick, Chris Olave, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Now, Olave not really being drafted too high in fantasy leagues. Wide receiver 46, round 13, pick 123. He's the definition of a late round flyer, but there's a lot to like about Olave. His speed, 4.39 40 time. His QB, Jameson Winston. Now I know Jameis he's in the media a lot for his memes and his dance, his training, but he did sustain a pretty good fantasy offense while he was starting QB last year and while he was with the Bucs. What I don't like is the competition that Olave is going to have to face. Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway. All these guys are in that wide receiver room. It's a pretty deep one. He's going to have to compete for targets, compete for time on the field, and granted, he does have a leg up on these other guys as he was the 11th overall pick. You don't spend an 11th overall pick for him to sit on the bench, but these guys aren't scrubs. These guys have been in the system for a large amount of time, besides obviously Jarvis Landry, the new acquisition, but still, I'm a little bit hesitant on that. Now, the Saints do have a new head coach, Dennis Allen. He was the defensive coordinator last year. The offensive coordinator is still the same guy, Pete Carmichael Jr., who's been with them since 2009. But you look at their offense in their first year without Drew Brees, which was last year, they averaged 29.6 pass attempts per game, the 3rd fewest in the NFL. A little concerned about volume, a little bit concerned about the target share that Olave has, but like I said, he's a late round flyer, round 13. I don't mind taking him. Let's talk about a running back now. Breece Hall, probably the number 1 drafted running back for all of rookies. Look, he's currently was drafted as a 2nd round pick, pick 36 by the New York Jets out of Iowa State. Currently going as running back 21, a hefty price for a rookie running back, round 6. Now, things I love about Breece Hall, 1, he was great at Iowa State. The guy was unreal. Look at these numbers. In 2020, 12 games, over 1,500 yards, 23 total touchdowns. 2021, 12 games, 1,400 yards, 23 touchdowns. He finished college holding the NCAA record for most consecutive games with a touchdown, 24. He ran a 4.39 40. He's 215 pounds. This guy's all the intangibles in the world. Now, what I don't love about Breece Hall, 1, he's a New York Jet. I mean, when was the last time the New York Jets had a fantasy relevant running back? In fact, the Jets have had just 2 1,000-yard rushers in the last 10 years, Sean Green and Chris Ivory. To be an elite running back, in my opinion, which he has to be RB20, that's the value he has to return, you're really going to have to score some touchdowns. And the Jets offense, I don't predict to be too offensive, too scoring a lot of touchdowns. The Jets scored the 9th fewest touchdowns last year. His ADP is very high for a rookie running back on what I assume will be a pretty lackluster Jets offense. People are expecting big things, and maybe he does do that, but I'm going to avoid Breece Hall at his current ADP. Speaking of the Jets, let's talk about his teammate, Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson came out of Ohio State. Jets drafted him, 10th overall pick. Now he's going to enter a wide receiver room with Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Braxton Berrios, and Denzel Mims, which the Jets are still holding on to hope that he does at least something. Please, Denzel. We're just asking for, throw us a bone, please. But you look at it in college and in his combine, he's 6 feet tall, ran a 4.38 40. This guy's got the speed and size to be able to do damage in the NFL. He's going as wide receiver 43 in draft, so not really paying a heavy premium to get Garrett Wilson onto your team. In fact, he's right next to Elijah Moore, his teammate. Now, he was superb for the Buckeyes, but obviously in college, you got to be pretty good in college to be a 10th overall pick. Caught 23 touchdowns over 34 games played. Now, despite the crowded wide receiver room, the Jets seem to like what they're seeing out of Mr. Garrett Wilson. I think he has a pretty good year this year. Problem is his development and really his production in fantasy football comes down to his quarterback play, whether it's Joe Flacco or Zach Wilson. I don't really know what you're going to get out of those two guys. So I don't really know. I mean, he's a late round flyer if you want to take him. Garrett Wilson should have a pretty decent year. He could have a breakout year towards the end of the year. We did see Elijah Moore kind of break on before he got injured right around week 13, week 14. So I think Garrett Wilson could have a pretty good year. He's cheap in fantasy football. So if you want to take a New York Jet, which it's bold to do so, go for it. Now, he's trending maybe in the right direction. Here's a guy trending in the wrong direction in fantasy drafts. Treylon Burks, drafted 18th overall to the Titans. Burks was drafted to replace A.J. Brown, who they traded on draft night. They were like, this guy's not a one-for-one, but maybe he can get us some pennies onto the dollar. But the preseason hasn't been kind to Mr. Treylon Burks. He entered camp with concerns of his conditioning. So much so that they had him practicing with the second and third string offenses. His first preseason game was described by head coach Mike Vrabel, his head coach, as inconsistent. He's ran some with the punt squad, which he actually apparently asked to run with the punt squad, which is probably a good thing. The Titans need big things from Burks because you look at this wide receiver room, they got Robert Woods is really the only guy with a lot of NFL success to his name, and he's recovering from a torn ACL. So they need Burks to pan out, so he's probably going to get playing time when he at least, is good and ready to go. A little bit concerned. I don't really want a piece of this Titans offense unless it's maybe Derrick Henry at the helm. If you want to take a flyer on Treylon Burks, go for it. Maybe he becomes, last year's Jamar Chase, when everyone was hating on him in the preseason, and then he absolutely turned into a fantasy beast. Don't necessarily know that happens here, but maybe it does. Treylon Burks, I've seen crazier things. Have a great season, young guy. Let's move on to a running back with a lot of upside, maybe not this year, but in Dynasty, Kenneth Walker III. Now, this guy could be a league winner. This guy has the talent in the world. He's currently being drafted as running back 37th in the 13th round. Now, I do want to talk first about the news that came out on August 16th. Some news about a hernia for Kenneth Walker III. We don't really know exactly what's going down with this. I guess more will develop probably after this video goes live, but I did want to at least bring it up because I probably wouldn't draft him at his current ADP, but let's at least talk about his time at Michigan State and how big of a stud he was. Hey, look at these numbers. 12 games, over 1,600 yards, 13 touchdowns. Didn't do a lot in the receiving game, which might be his one critique, but this guy's currently number 2 on the depth chart behind Rashad Penny. Now, while a lot of guys might not draft, we might not see these guys go too far. Maybe if you're in a shorter team league, like an 8 or 10 team league, maybe Kenneth Walker is one of the later picks. But Kenneth Walker has the chance to be a big waiver wire ad if Rashad Penny does go down, or even the opposite for Rashad Penny for Kenneth Walker. You look at Penny, everyone's high on him this year. He's still going as a right around running back 36. Why? Because he ran for 671 yards in his final 5 games. The problem with Penny, you never know if he's going to be healthy. You look at the last 3 years. 10, 3, and 10 games played. That's been the critique for him. Rashad Penny can't stay on the field. So if that does happen, he can't stay on the field. Kenneth Walker is going to be thrown into a big workhorse role on this team. The Seahawks want to run the ball. They don't want to really throw it a ton with Geno Smith and Drew Lock. So I do think this guy has the chance to be a league winner. Will he be a league winner? I don't know. It remains to be seen about injuries and exactly how they want to use Kenneth Walker III. If Kenneth Walker III and Rashad Penny are both healthy, both can be more or less pretty useless in fantasy football, in my opinion. But Walker has the intangibles, just needs to be on the field. Speaking of lighting up the field, this player's been lighting it up all preseason long. George Pickens. Pickens came out of Georgia, round 2, pick 52. Look, the coaching staff and everyone on Twitter is absolutely amazed by George Pickens. He's shoving guys down. He had a terrific toe tap, in the back corner of the end zone in their first preseason game. He's showing a lot of signs to be pretty elite. Problem is he's going to have to fight for a target share on this team behind Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. Now, something that works out in his direction, in his favor, but not necessarily the Steelers. Anthony Miller appears to be out for the year with a shoulder injury. And we got to talk about Pickens' size. I mean, there's a reason he was shoving guys down. He's 6'3", over 200 pounds. The main negative, he didn't really do a lot in college while at Georgia. He was kind of banged up at Georgia. And really, if you're just betting on athleticism winning out, Pickens probably your guy. I think he's got a good chance to be pretty decent this year. We'll see how elite the Steelers' offense is. Obviously, going to take a step back without Big Ben Roethlisberger, but Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett can maybe pick it up. No pun intended. But let's transition to one of the guys, the most athletic guys in the draft. Jameson Williams, the 12th overall pick by the Lions, could end up being the steal of the draft when we look back after it after 5 to 10 years. Williams was the 4th receiver taken off the board. You could have argued he could have gone above all the other 3 guys that were taken above him. The problem was he slipped in drafts due to an ACL tear that happened in the national championship game against Georgia. Now, during his time at Alabama, which he only was there for 1 year after transferring from Ohio State, Jameson Williams lit it up, played 15 games, 79 receptions, over 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns. Look, talent's there. The speed, the athleticism, the ability to make those tough catches. Jameson Williams has all of that. The wide receiver room for the Lions, not really that crowded. Sophomore Amon-Ra St. Brown had a great year last year. DJ Chark has kind of bounced around. Going there, hopefully he can find, a fit and maybe find a role there. You look at once he's fully healthy, which is, it's going to take some time. Jameson should be right in that wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 slot. The problem is, you're going to have to wait and see with Jameson Williams. He's already been ruled out for week 1. The Lions clearly, knock on wood, they aren't going to win the championship this year. So you have to take it slow with this guy and Jameson Williams. They're not going to force him into NFL competition, force him to get maybe re-injured. This is a guy that they obviously are trying to build with for his longevity of his career. So it might take a while. You probably would not be surprised he's being drafted as wide receiver 67 in most leagues, but this is a guy that could be very good in dynasty leagues, could be very good at the tail end of this year. Really like Jameson Williams. That's talent. We'll see how he does this year. Let's talk about another Jameson sort of. James Cook. You might recognize this guy by his last name. His brother, his older brother, Dalvin Cook, the Minnesota Vikings superstar running back. Now, James flashed on the scene at Georgia, played there a couple years, and he wasn't their workhorse back. This is not a guy that probably will ever handle, 25 carries a game. But in 2021, played pretty well. 6.4 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns, hauling in 27 passes, a very good receiver. And look, he ran for 77 yards at the national championship game and only 6 carries. That's a pretty good average. Now, Cook possesses the same speed that you'll see out of his brother, Dalvin Cook. They look eerily similar running on the field. There's no surprise that the Bills went out and got him with their second-round pick number 63. Cook, going right now, is running back 37, round 14. So people are expecting, some good things out of Cook. And you look at the Bills, this is a team that doesn't really run the ball a whole lot, so there's not going to be a lot of rushing attempts, but a team that does pass it a lot, and they need a good pass-catching back out there. That's what people expect James Cook to be. We do remember in the offseason, Bills tried to sign J.D. McKissic. There was all tirade over that deal. What happened? They signed him, and then the Washington Commanders talked to him. It was a whole ordeal, and then they went out and said, "Fine, we don't need J.D. McKissic. We'll take James Cook, the younger guy, and maybe Cook fills in that role, a guy that's always playing on third down, always catch and pass it from Josh Allen. We'll see. I think James Cook has the talent to be really good. Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, Duke Johnson at the end of the end of the depth chart. None of these guys really scare me. If James Cook is as talented as the Bills think he is, and is as talented as people have been seeing in the preseason, he could be on the field before you know it. It could be pretty good. And pretty good, I think this guy will be pretty good too. Christian Watson, the final guy we're going to talk about today. Currently he was he's 6'4", second round pick for the Packers. Look, he was held out of practice until August 14th, returned. A knee injury was holding him out, but he's back and ready to go. Like I said, 6'4", so on 6'5", we're at a 4.3640. This guy's blazing fast, and he went to college at North Dakota State. A lot of people didn't really pay attention to him. It's honestly very surprising to see the Packers draft a skill position so high like they normally avoid, but they drafted him as a second-round pick pretty early on in that second round. Now, he didn't turn a lot of eyes at North Dakota State because not a lot of eyes were on him, but he did turn in 800 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns, and lucky for him, he gets to play with the back-to-back MVP, Aaron Rodgers, on a team without Devontae Adams. Now, you look at this wide receiver room. You got Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, Sammy Watkins, and Christian Watson. Now, you would think, Allen Lazard's the number one on this team, but Aaron Rodgers has never really loved Allen Lazard. He's never been known as a great route runner. That's normally what Mr. Rodgers wants, is he wants a good route runner. That's why Randall Cobb still finds his way on this team. Randall Cobb, he knows where he's going to be. So Christian Watson, who I anticipate to be a pretty good route runner, can get out there and play pretty well. I think he has a chance to be on the field. You think about Randall Cobb, he's pretty injured often. Sammy Watkins, injured often. Allen Lazard missed some games last year. So would it be crazy to say, Watson becomes that number one target for Aaron Rodgers? Maybe it's a little bit crazy, but look, I have seen crazier things happen. Christian Watson has the talent, he has the speed, and hopefully he can get open for Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers will hit him in stride. So, you're not even paying a big premium on Christian Watson. Currently being drafted as wide receiver 64. Basically not even drafted in the large majority of leagues. Could he come on, flash onto the scene? Maybe. I hope he does. Hoping for Christian Watson out of North Dakota State. Now, 11th rookie, if we had to make a honorable mention, Dameon Pierce of the Texans. But look, he's had a great camp. And expecting big things from him. But if you want a full part 2 video, maybe 10 more rookies that maybe the sub list, the honorable mentions, hit that like button. Also, if you want to check out this video on the screen, 7 players I am avoiding in fantasy football this year. One of these rookies is on that list. Thanks for tuning in. Go check out that video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.